Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to another Dodos Riding Dinos unboxing. This is for Dodo Dash, and of course, Detestable Games, Draco Studios, and part of the, I don't have a display report, but the Creature Kingdom. So this is technically a standalone expansion to Dodos Riding Dinos, meaning you can pick this up and play the game right out of the box. It has 9 different characters or Dodo dinosaur combinations to play as. If you're not familiar with what this is, let me start with that, I guess. It is a racing slash kind of like dexterity game. So imagine Mario Kart type of idea. You go around the board, you play different cards. They're going to indicate how many spaces you're going to move. They'll have effects which will do different things. They might damage your opponent, which makes them discard their cards. Or it might make you do a little dexterity game with a little wooden meeple, which try to hit other players, like your power-up items. There are various modes to play as, so it's not just the one type of mode, which is really fun. And the characters you can play either with or without their special abilities. So again, a bunch of different options to play there, which is really cool. So the one thing that makes it, I say why... it is a standalone, again, it's a standalone expansion. You can pick this up and play it. I would recommend it more as an expansion to regular Dodos Riding Dinosaurs. If you're going to pick up one, pick up the first one. It has it has 2 maps in it, and where this one only has 1. But the map, it has like an easy map, and then it has the other 3 maps. Each add a little bit of elements. This adds a lot more extra gameplay and stuff, so it really feels more like a straight-up expansion. Like, oh, I played the base game. I know how to play the game. Here's an expansion with new elements to add in. So I'm not learning how to play the basics anymore. I already know how to sit down and play it. And then there's these extra cool features to it. But again, that being said, you can just sit down and play this. It's not a super difficult game to learn. Like they have on the box, it's 10 plus. There's, lots of, because you have to be able to read cards and, that. But a lot of it's pretty simple. Just play cards and do stuff. I'm not going to get too super in-depth on how to play, just because I did in the first video. If you want to see a more in-depth, you can definitely check that out. I will mention the new features, though. But just to kind of quickly rush through it, is the tracks have outer and inner tracks. You can decide which one you want to play, a longer or shorter game. You pick your Dodo dinosaur combination. You get 6 cards to play, and they set aside the other cards off to the side. So we have all those prepped up to go. Then during your turn, you have a scheming phase. Each player gets to play either a normal blue card, an aggressive red card, or a yellow dash card from their hand. Which is basically going to give a number. It's going to show on the card here. A little foot icon. How fast it goes. That's how many spaces you move. And then possibly an effect. So each player places them face down. You flip them up at the same time. And then in turn order, each player gets to go. They do their movement, resolve their effects. The only thing is there is enraged. So if you play aggressive cards, which usually have more, not necessarily more movement, but they have more powerful effects or more damaging effects. If more than so many people play, depending on, it says down here, I think it actually did adjust the rules a bit during an errata, but it's usually about half the players play an aggressive card, then the effects get canceled. You still get a move, but you don't get your effects. Then each player gets to go ahead and move. You can play the green cards, which are reactions, which might cancel effects or give you extra movement, do stuff like that. If after resolving all the card effects, a player has to rest. If they have no cards in their hand, a player must move back 3 hexes and draw 6 cards. So this is slightly changed from the original game. The original one just said if you didn't have any aggressive or normal cards you couldn't move. This says if you have absolutely no cards. And there you only draw 5 cards, now you draw 6. So that's a slight little bit of change in there. So that means then you can kind of just hang on to your reaction cards, but eventually you're going to want to get rid of them. Otherwise, you're going to not be able to do any extra movement because reactions don't have movement abilities. End of the round, person in the first place gets to advance an extra space. All other players get to draw a card. And your cards are basically, oh yeah, because here it does fix this. It says, if after resolving your card you have no cards, you have to do it. But it does say otherwise here. After resolving the ability or power cards, if players without no normal or dash or aggressive cards in their hands. If the last card you play is your like reaction card, then you'd have to redraw a new hand. Your cards, your hand is basically considered your energy. So as your dinosaur is running across the map trying to get to the finish line, as you use cards, you're wearing them down, and then if they run out of your cards, you have to basically stop, take a breather to regain all your cards. And that's where damaging on different effects will make you discard cards and does that. All the dinosaur cards will have two sides. One side will have a special ability on it. The other side will have, excuse me, a difficulty and speed modifiers. The speed modifiers are for 1 and 2 player games. So when you're playing against essentially AI or like computer type players, they have something to go off of. Pretty simple other than that. Damage, each time you do damage, you have to discard that number of cards. Drawing and stealing cards. There's no hand size. Draw cards, you just draw them. You steal, you take them at random. There's a first player token to kind of keep track of activations. And there are special blocking cards. But these blocking cards will only block the text of the card, never the speed. Then the dexterity portion. I'm going to kind of fly through this one a little bit quicker as well. We have certain cards will tell you to play certain projectiles. We have the meteor. So the meteor, big giant, and we'll look at him right now actually, won't we? So we got the meteor here. Big giant token. So you drop this from the table on trying to drop on a dinosaur. If you do, they take damage. We have the little tiny egg. There's the little egg. This, you flick across the table just with one finger. And if it hits something, then they get considered hit. And each card will have different effects. Some might do 1 damage. Some might make them move back. It just always depends on the card. Then we have the banana. So the banana, you put your elbow on the... You'll put your elbow on the table, and then you kind of chuck it with your wrist. Not with your full arm, just with your wrist. Trying to hit something. The log. Alright, here. We got the log here, so here's our log. You place your hand above or kind of on top of your token, your dinosaur, and you let it roll out of your hand to see what it can hit. We have the feather, which you actually have your arm off the table, or off the map at least, and you kind of chuck it upwards. So it kind of does like an arcing land. And then the last one is the brand new one. So this is the dodo. So there's a little dodo there. It says, put the dodo token on the back of your hand to imitate a dodo's wing. By moving your wrist towards your shoulder, so kind of like sideways towards your body, make a dodo chirp with a flapping motion, and throw the token. Only the first racer touched by it is considered hit. When successful, you gain a Dodo Idol power card. So this is kind of neat because it's going to add power cards into the main game. Where the first one didn't have them except for on special ones. Here is our first player token. Interesting because it's actually foam versus a meeple. Just interesting why they did that. Yeah, sorry. So that's the 6 different projectiles, and that's the agility part. Then we have 2 different boards, which I'm going to get into in just a moment here. I'm going to skip over for now. We have some variants. We have a treasure hunt variant as well. It could be a 3 to 4 player game, which adds an extra brand new element to the game. There's a solo and 2 player mode, which I mentioned before, the AI characters. This is basically plays the same way, except you draw cards for the other characters and then use extra bonuses on their movement, but they don't get all the extra, they don't get to choose what they want. And the last thing I really just want to go through, we're going to go through this at the end, but it's mixing the original game with the sequel. So that'll be the last thing we go through. Alright, let's take a look at the boards. And then we will jump into the dinosaurs. So, in the first game, we had the Dodino Islands, which was our main board. And then we had the Borrelia Arc. I can't remember the exact name of it. But it was like the Aurora Borealis, kind of like a Rainbow Road type thing. We had the Infernus Volcano, and we had my brain doesn't run. We had the Ice Roads. We had Ice Fire, kind of like a starry sky thing, and then just like a normal island. But there were hints to leading into we were going to try and find the Dorado, Dodo jungle, kind of like El Dorado, the City of Gold. So in here, this game kind of picks up as a good sequel to it because we have a map which is like the ruins outside leading into the tunnel for the dungeon. So this is why I mentioned that this is more of an expansion. Should be treated almost more as an expansion than just a standalone game. Granted, you could play this ignoring all the special tiles and just play this as a regular map, but you could do that with any of the maps technically. But what this particular map does is it adds a brand new gameplay element with these little like trap, like most symbols are called traps. So what you do is we're going to have our bunch of our trap symbols that match all those. There's 12 of them. So you have 12 different ones. That we get to do there. So what you do with this is you place them randomly on each tile for whichever, if you're playing the outside or the inside. And then they're going to have various effects. It says, trap tiles are revealed and resolved immediately when a racer ends their movement on them, either by moving forward or backward. Revealed traps remain this way for the rest of the race. So it only happens if they end their movement on them. So if you run over them, you're fine. Like, you can get by it quick, but if you end on top of it, you trigger a trap. There are two types. There are immediate trap tiles. Are triggered by ending your movement on top of it, and then it will automatically activate, do its thing, and then go away. And then there's trap zone tiles, which are golden. Are triggered by ending your movement on any hex, between the trap zone tile, including the next trap tile on the track, regardless of its type, active or not, including the hex of the second tile. So they are revealed when someone lands on them. But then they're triggered if you end on top of them. So, like, if I stop specifically on this space, I flip one of the tiles over, I see which two it is. If it's the immediate one, that's only going to then hit someone again if they land on that spot. If it's one of the gold ones, though, it will trigger every time you move between this one and this one. So it'll hit between the two spaces. So once this gets revealed, every time you're on any of these tiles until you get to this one, it will trigger in that space. So it's kind of like, you can kind of see on the tiles when we look at them, we have a couple of different symbols here. So we have like spike traps, draw a card, but you lose one movement, getting hit with a big log trap. You lose a card, but you get to move 3 spaces. Falling off a bridge, you just lose 2 movement. Swinging from a vine, though, you get to move 2 spaces. Which, like, rolling on some rubble, you get to roll an extra dice to move that many spaces. Picking up a dangerous idol, you get to draw 2 cards. But falling into a spike trap, or spears coming up, you get -2 movement. So you kind of see what they work. Then the gold ones here, which actually look pretty cool. They're more of like environmental effects. So we have like a boulder rolling at you, you lose a card. Falling in a pit, you get to play a dash card. But then you lose. It says, while playing a dash card, in the zone, you get to draw 2 extra cards. Or if you are in the swamp, you get to play, every time you play a normal card, you get ×2 its value. If you are on fire, if you're going to be playing aggressive card, its effect can't be canceled by being enraged. And the last one here would be is if you play a movement card or a reaction card, you get 3 extra spaces. There's like he's singing along as he goes. So yeah, a couple different neat little traps in there you can do. So it doesn't make the game necessarily super extra difficult. But it is an extra element that you have to play as you're trying to remember the game. The other side, however, is an entirely different story. We're going to flip this over, and now we are in the glorious, the Dorado Temple. And this thing is, it has some nice shiny gold on it. Big inner, outside track, big, fairly decent sized inner track too, goes around that bone. But this has a couple of new concepts in it, which make the game a little bit more advanced. So if I can move my camera over here and kind of look at some of these. First of all, we have the drift icon. These are the Double Dash, little Double Dash icons. So what the drift icon is going to do in this game is going to be, when advance to the start of a drifting section triggers the drift. So if I move into this section, I automatically trigger the drifting. Then what you're going to do is the drift hexes after show a number of needed to roll to advance. So like this one's going to be 3, this one's going to be 4. If I get to some of the more advanced ones, you have a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5. So what you do is each time you try to go in the spaces, you roll a die. And then as long as you get higher than that number, you drift to that space. So for example, if I have my dino here and I move here, I roll 2. Such that I have to roll 2. If I roll 4, I get a move. And I roll for this one. If I roll 5, I get a move again. If I roll 4, because that's equal to or greater, I move here. But now if I roll 1, I don't get a move to that spot. I was only able to drift 3 spots. So that's kind of cool. And then as you get farther, you actually get some extra little bonuses for landing on some of them. Extra movement, obviously. And so after you complete the sequence, if you complete the sequence or don't roll the number of required dice, your drift sequence ends, and then you continue your movement. So what that meant was like if I have 3 spaces to move and I move 1 space here, or I move 1 space onto here, and then if I drift to here, I still have 3 more movement. I go 1, 2, 3. So you continue your movement for whenever you hit that drift spot. So it just lets you kind of like skid around the corner and then continue your regular movement. It's a pretty neat mechanic. Again, it's not terribly complicated or anything. But yeah, it's an extra little element. Then the other thing we have on the board are the question mark blocks, which are called Dodo Idol Charms. So these are like their Mario Kart power-ups. If like flip over the board to the other side, we'll have a couple more here and there. They're not all over the place. And now I can't even find another one. So I know there's one up here. I was trying to see where they were in the yellow. Maybe they're not in the yellow zone? I see one. And that might... there can't just be the 2 of them. 1 sec. All right. Sorry about that. I had a little confusion while I was actually reading the book and I was looking at it. I said, so there is only 2 tiles that have the Dodo Idol charm on them. There's one on the one side for here for yellow and one on the top for orange. So there's 1 per each side. So it's only going to activate for 1 player. So unlike a Mario Kart race where you have multiple, unless you're doing laps. There's a possibility there. So those are going to be these like question mark stones here, which are going to have some various abilities on them. So if we look, when you trigger one, it says charm tiles are revealed when I eraser reaches or passes through them by advancing, either by using speed or resolving other effects. Charm tiles are triggered at the end of eraser's movement. If you end on top of a charm tile by advancing, it's also triggered. Moving back doesn't trigger them. When you trigger a tile, roll a dice and resolve its effect. So, so if you're like a 1 or 2, you'll draw a card, move 2 spaces, or if you get a 5 or 6, instead, you get to draw a charm card, resolve it, and then return it to the box. So you get a special charm card. They'll have these special little guys here. And then you replace the tile. That way, the next player that runs over it will get access to it. So each player gets an option. 5 and 6 are always the same. So like the second one here, instead, it's 2 cards and 1 movement, minus 1 card, 3 movement, or play a feather, 1 movement and 1 card, minus 2 cards or 2 movement. So there's 6 different ones. So if you have a 6-player game, each person will get a doing. If you're playing higher count than that, then the last people just don't get prizes, I guess. That's just gonna happen. The other thing they have mentioned in here, but it doesn't mention it a whole lot, is it says when placed, so you can get an optional connecting tile. It says when placing a charm on each of their 2 hexes, so both sides, that way you can hit both of them. And then from the outer track and track, use a drift tile marked with 3. So yeah, there's a little confusion there because there is no tile marked there. But they have this special little drift tile that you can use. Or not drift tile, connecting tile. So you can connect the inner and outer tiles to stuff. Now, arguably, it's not going to necessarily match the aesthetics, but you could use this in any version of any board. I should be able to use it in any version of any board. I won't guarantee that, because some of them might not have their hexes right next to each other. Because the other side, that's actually a very good question. Yeah, so they're like, none of the hexes are next to each other, but you could probably use it, because if I pop this out, you could potentially set it up down here. Good. The only thing they have it on the drift tiles, I think, because then the arrow makes sense to go that way. Versus these ones, they don't. So if I look at a drift tile, yeah, because they want you to put it in something like that. Or like on this one. So that's why I'm coming around the... Oh, I try to keep this on camera here. There we go. So if I'm coming around the corner, then I shoot into this spot. Because that's the only time it's really going to work that way. That way, yeah, you're coming around. Actually, or you can have it like this and coming this direction. But I think they want it like that. As the idea is it's going to shoot you off. And then move you back onto the next tile. Which actually probably would be like this to match that. So you kind of get that aesthetic, like, oh, the bridge is broken, and they fall off into the bottom tile, which is the idea of it. But yeah, just like this is a grass side, so I don't know why there wouldn't be a reason why you couldn't match it up to one of these. That actually is probably what this little boulder is, I betcha. Kind of lines it up so you can come across here and go to the inner. So that's kind of neat. Yes, you could, again, it wouldn't maybe necessarily match up, but it would allow you to mix the outside and inside tiles. So then you start here, you go all the way, or you start on the outside, you go all the way around, and then when you're coming back, and right before you get back to the exit, now you have to go on the inside and go all the way around. And it just gives you a longer game on one map, which is actually a really cool idea. So I don't have any issue with that. So those are the 2 basic ways to play. The other version they added in the game, I'm going to zoom my camera back up here, is the treasure hunting, which is a 3 to 4 player variant. A couple extra setups. So we're going to have these bases, and we're going to have some eggs. So I'm not going to get into too much of all of this. But overall, what the whole point of this is, what you do is you are trying to steal the other player's treasure. So each player has 3 treasures. So 4 players, you're trying to steal 1 treasure from each player, so each player can give out 1. And then once you have a treasure from all 3 players, that is how you win. So it says, So yeah, basically how it plays. Get additional speed value based on your Dino Meeple on your boost card, which we'll look at in just a moment. If you reach or pass a racer, you take a treasure from them. When you take a treasure from them, they become hunted. They must move back to the nearest base that's on the board, which you'll place at various spots on the board. Which there's one for each color, but the next is where you start from. And after that, it doesn't really matter. And there's eggs for each 4 colors. And that player's hunted. He lays down his miniature as temporary means. No one can attack him during that next turn. So he can't keep getting attacked by everybody and keep getting sent back. But then, yeah, so you run up, you meet a player, you steal their egg, they get sent back. And then now you're trying to race back around to either race towards the next character in the line or race all the way back around. So the race doesn't end by completing laps. After a player reaches plus 11 on their Hex boost card, if no player's already won by collecting all the other eggs, the player plays one more round. Whoever has the most treasure token wins, or whoever has more cards in their hand. So at the end of the round, resolve any end-around effects. The passive first player marker. All players draw a movement card. All players move their Dino Meeple on a booster card. So what this game does is it comes with these 4 booster cards for your characters, which will start with 0, and then each turn you crank it up 1. So if my first turn, then I'd have 0. Second turn, I'd get +1 movement, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it'll flip over, and you'll have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So as the game goes on, you play a level 2 movement card. Eventually, you'll have 8, or you could have 9, or you could have 12. It's going to let you catch up and get around the board a lot quicker to guys versus just playing your movement card. So yeah, they're showing the little guy down there. It's a neat way to use your meeples and your miniatures at the same time as well. So it's a fun little different mode to play versus just a standard race. Could you do this, again, on any other map? I think they say you're supposed to do it on the, it says draw 3 treasures and a Dino Idol power card. It says use the Dodo Temple, but don't place charm tiles, instead place them on there. Could you play it on any other map? Sure. You just have to figure out equal distance to place the stuff, on the map to do different things. But yeah, you can definitely go ahead and probably place on any map and have race around different maps, like the shortcuts or the jumping or various things like that. Even play with one, add all the traps in there, make that more interesting. Again, challenge mode I didn't get too much into. So then the last little thing we want to look at is mixing and matching different stuff for the game before we hop into all the characters and all the fun cards and stuff. So mixing characters between the two. You can mix any character from one game to the other. I did mention before, it says the Dodo Dash racers draw 6 cards instead of 5. And I did actually look that up on why that was. It's because a lot of their abilities, if you're using their abilities, make them discard cards. So the idea is that way they have a chance to make up for using their special abilities more often. So if you're not using your special abilities, you could probably say they're 5. Or even the game developer, I think, recommends is that if you want, just always use 6 for every character. Then you don't have to try and remember. Traps and charms and other tracks. Adding these tiles from the original game is very easy. Just avoid placing them in special hexes. Like, don't place them on the fire tokens or the shortcuts so you don't have to try and remember where those are. Or within 3 hexes of the finish line. Tracks on the other, you can hold up to 7, the distance of 3 or 4. And the inner tracks is 5 with 2 or 3. On the polar iceberg track, don't place traps in the shortcut sections because you might not have to hit those. And then we have charms. Place the tile about in the middle of the track so you can have 1 on each. If you want more charm experience, you make traps and charms all over the place. So that's definitely a really cool idea. Mixing movement decks. Combine both decks to expand the possibility of winning. At the end of the game, you can swiftly separate them. So that's also fun. Now, there's a couple of cards that obviously the name of them at least copies over. Like they do have like eggs and banana and some of those that gets go over. I don't know if they have the exact same card effects. I'd have to like actually compare them. But yeah, you can just mix your deck, make one big deck, have more different cards. Dashing through cup mode. Randomly pick the board for each of the 4 races. Combine both movement deck races with your Dodo Idle power cards. After each race, if there are no more Dodo Idle power cards in the deck, effects from dash cards resolved normally. Except you no longer get Dodo Idle cards through the written effects. Instead, randomly take 1 idle power card from the first racer you hit with a projectile. So what this is saying is when you're doing the cup mode, which you play 4 races in a row, you want to combine both movement decks, but racers keep their Dodo Idle powers after each race. Versus normally then because they get 1 at the beginning of the game, versus the power cards from the original game, which you earned at the end of each race. So you're going to have multiple powers stacking up. Treasure Hunting Rally, try playing cup mode with the Treasure Hunting Rally on 4 different tracks. So like we said, we could play that thing with a little movement around the bases. Now you can play it as a big giant thing with gaining your fans and all that stuff. Yeah, so it's definitely that. And then the final one that's kind of cool is the boost cards of the mini track. You can line the 4 boost cards in the game to play a quick game with the Dino Meeples. You ignore the boost effects on the hexes and just follow them in order. So if we look at that really fast, so we flip back down here. So we have our little boost cards here. And figure out which direction they all go in. Nope. There we go, because there's our finish line, and there. So yeah, that's kind of cool. This will make a little, if you want to play a little tiny map, which then you take your little meeples and you move them around instead of the other dinosaurs. Yeah, it gives you a little extra thing. So there's like the temple, kind of like the temple outside of the thing. So here's our Dino Island, and then we come over. Now here's how we get into the ruin area, which then we play the big map on there. We actually play the ruins. There's our matches up our stuff. So that's kind of a neat little idea. It has, what, 5, 10, 15, 20 spaces, plus the extra 4 that or the 3 that combine, so 23 spaces. So it probably has more than maybe a small one, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, so it's basically the same size as a small track, the inner tracks. So it's not, not bad there. You just instead you play on a little tiny thing. But you can also flip them all over. And it's the same map. Just it looks like it's nighttime. On the other side with the other tiles. So that's kind of a fun little extra thing there as well. Alright, we're going to look at all of the cards and the dinosaurs and stuff now. Alright, so we're looking at our dinosaurs. So, if you're not familiar, like from the first one, is the dinosaurs. The first name, Sternberg, is the name of the paleontologist or whoever discovered the dinosaur fossils. And Alberta tends to be, usually it's either like a play on words or a play at the characters' names, or it has to do with maybe like a family member or a coworker from one of the companies, something like that. There are a couple of changes on these cards from the first game that I really enjoy. I love, first of all, instead of just having an empty backside, they have the player ability on one side, but also lists the dinosaur's name. I really thought, or type. I really thought that was a good thing. So this is a Stratosaurus. And on the back side, where it normally would have been the full thing, they just put the challenge symbols on that side. I don't have a problem that they were like all on the same side before. That's not really a big deal. But this kind of helps to separate it, so you know that like one's for a player side, one's the AI side. And then here it's going to have the same type of symbol, difficulty. Instead of saying easy, standard, or hard, it's going to have gears. So 2 gear is medium or standard, 1 is easy, 3 is hard. Then you have your blue, red, green, but now it also adds yellow. I wish there would be like an update pack, maybe in the future. If you got anyone from the company watches this video, maybe in the future, one of the later Kickstarters or something, add an updated pack where we could get the older character cards, even some of the promo ones as well, because obviously you want all of them, with the yellow dash ability. If you're not playing with the Dodo Dash expansion, you just ignore it. Simple as that. Alright, so let's hop in and look at these guys. Here's our miniatures. I love these miniatures because they're so lifelike looking. They're always doing movement actions. So here he is, the Dodo. It's a little bit harder to see on him because he kind of blends in. But yeah, he's like just stuck to the charging front of him. So it's at the end of each round, you may discard one card. If you do, advance one hex and choose a racer to move ahead of you. Choose a racer ahead of you to move back 2 hexes. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, if you want to move, you can go ahead and move, discard a card to gain an extra movement ability. Alright, then we have Wellenhofer and Archie. So we have another flying character to go with our pterodactyl from the first game. Got the little clouds there showing him. He's a little bit easier to play against. Oh, we got that. So we have, whenever you pass a race, you may discard a card. If you do, advance two hexes. And this is an Archaea Parakex. Yeah, so it's a really neat looking guy. Getting some different ones, not your standard Tyrannosaurus, Stegosaurus, guys in there. So here's Bane and Owen, this big jolly guy. Kind of another waterish creature, not maybe necessarily aquatic like our last one, but he has his tongue hanging out. The bird's riding for dear life there. Owen. So this is a Genesiodon. It says, whenever you hit any racers with a projectile, you may discard one card. If you do, advance 3 hexes. Yeah, so very interesting. Up next, we have Bradley and Masashi. She got some more of the feathery type guys, but I love that little bill on there. He's got down for aerodynamics. You kind of see the bird is trying that too, but he's got that cloud dust beneath him, which is really fun. So I can get that to focus a little bit better. Yeah. Even got the teeth in there, which is very good. Alright, what is this guy? He is a Protoceratops. Cerosaurus. Protocerosaurus. Oh, that is a mouthful. It says once per round, whenever you roll any emoted dice, you may discard one card. If you do roll an additional dice and add its result. This could be very helpful for a lot of these other modes too, because you could roll for extra dashing, you could roll for extra movement cards, you can even roll for the charms. You're really trying to get that 5 or 6. So that's definitely cool. Alright, then up next, we are going to have another fun group of characters. Sharov, Arya, and Paula. So these 2 little guys pulling a dodo. We had one like this in the first game where we had the 3 of them pushing and pulling a guy. So that's fun that we get to kind of revisit that. It's not just all the big guys, but so they're trying to pull him forward on the thing. So he's sitting up a little bit more than he is in the artwork. But that's probably just, aesthetic. But they also put him up kind of like they're trying to pull him up over a rock. To kind of show that a little bit more, which is really cool. And these guys are long squeemas. Interesting. At the end of the round, you may discard one card. If you do, choose a racer ahead of you, look at their hand and take a card. So that's fun. Card stealing is always cool. Alright, then we do have another aquatic character. We have Anna and Elena. We got this magical creature who rolls on top of a seashell. The other water creature had wheels. This one gets to roll on top of a shell. Not a seashell. I'm not sure what kind of shell that is. Yeah, and then her mouth is up and the guy's riding on her face. It's fun. Alright, so this is a Plesiosaurus. So whenever you take damage, you may discard one card. If you do, ignore the damage and move back 1 hex. That is definitely cool. Yeah, ignore damage. Nothing wrong with that. Up next, we have Wellis and Spielberg. Ooh, there's a little meeple up there. I make sure it's the right direction. So this guy's kind of cool. He's got like vines on him. He's got a big frilly neck. And the Dodo also has a frill around his neck. He's trying to match him. That's fun. Yes, this is Dilophosaurus. So and I don't have all the like key things like who this guy is, who that person is, but like this one's very interesting because Spielberg, obviously, Jurassic Park, Spinosaurus being the spitter. They just kind of gave him like a leaf and vine stuff versus his traditional flare. But that's fun. Whenever another player plays a racer plays a reaction card, you may discard 1 card. If you do, advance 3 hexes. So that's really fun. We have 2 more. These last 2 are very, very interesting characters. So we have Salisbury and Buck. I like this one because he's the first dinosaur that's literally just carrying someone. Everyone else, they're usually like riding on them, or they're strapped to them, or they've been pulling them. And this guy's just like quarterbacking it, right? He just picks them up. He's like, I'm arm out. I'm just gonna charge through and like carry this Dodo to the finish. I even like how just the miniature looks more like mean to the Dodo than the drawing does, because there it looks like he's just literally ringing him around the neck, which is what he is doing, but that's funny. So what is interesting also about this character is his dino type. He is the Dracorex Hogwartiasa. So yes, this is based off of this actually to find out who Salisbury was. This took me forever. It was a little side tangent on this character. There were some paleontologists. It was a group of 3 people that weren't like they're kind of like amateurs. They weren't like super big pros or anything. Not, I don't know how much. I kept reading the word amateur, so I don't know what amateur status means in that world. But they weren't like world renowned. But yes, there's a group of people that found this. So they named it Dracorex after, in Hogwarts, after Draco Malfoy from Hogwarts from Harry Potter. But it also, Dracorex means, I think it's like hell dragon or fire dragon, something like that. So it kind of also fits that theme as well. So it's a very interesting idea. I would recommend looking it up. It's kind of a neat little creature. It says, whenever you pass a race, you may discard 1 card. If you do, deal 2 damage to all racers in that hex. Fun. Alright, then our last one is a very special one. Is we have Diane and Sarah, who are an egg. So I don't know what I just did with my camera. Alright. So it's also neat about this. Yeah, they're both eggs. There's a dodo in an egg and a dinosaur in an egg. That's a neat little pattern on there too. I'm glad they didn't try and print that into the thing, but that's definitely cool. Yeah, so the whole story behind this is since it's an egg, it technically never got discovered, much like it would. It's just listed as a dinosaur egg. But what this was is this was fans or backers of the game from the original series that Sarah, who really enjoyed the game or was going to enjoy the game. I don't remember the exact thing. But her mother, who is named Diane, ended up passing away of cancer, unfortunately. So the creators decided to give them a nod to this definitely pair of eggs. So they're named after a mother and daughter group. So that's actually a really cool thing, I thought. Says, alright, says whenever another racer hits you with a projectile, you may discard one card. If you do, advance 3 hexes and that racer draws 1 card. Cool. That's pretty cool. So those are all our different dinosaurs. Before we look at the movement, so as we're talking kind of about power cards, we're going to look at our charm cards, which were our ones you got by hitting like the little power-up boxes. So these all reference the different characters from this game. The Archer Dodo charm. Starting with you, each racer rolls 1 die and draws that amount of cards. The Protoceragon, Parasaurda Dodo. Starting with you, each racer rolls 1 die and advances that amount. The Dracododo. Starting with you, each racer rolls 1 die and discards that amount. So this is when you roll that 5 to 6 on those special tiles. Besides of these guys, this is a reference. You roll 5 to 6, you get one of these cards and it automatically activates. So it kind of hits everybody, but it does like a bigger effect. Policia Dodo, invert the direction of the racers. Which I think means the first player token, now you go clockwise instead of counterclockwise, not move backwards at all on the board. Although that would be crazy too. The Striacododo, all racers discard your hand, draw 3 cards. This doesn't cause damage, and recovering is not triggered by discarding their hands. And the Gneisia Dodo, take all the cards from each racer's hand, including yours, shuffle them, dealing you hand each player 1 card at a time in turn order to start with you. This could effectively replace, like, you could get more cards, you could lose cards. So that's what's interesting about these, because they you draw that 5 to, you roll that 5 to 6, you auto activate these. So you don't have the option to not do them. So we had that one. Yeah, so there's I think a couple on here that don't have, because I think there's only 6 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we have 9 guys. We didn't get the egg, the Dilophosaurus, and the Lasquima. I think were the 3 we didn't get. But they might come later as other promo cards, so maybe eventually we'll get enough to cover all 9 characters. Then the other ones we have are the Dino Idol power-up cards. So these kind of replace the power-up cards from the first game, which were all fruits or vegetables or food. These instead are going to be based off the different dinosaurs from the first game. So it should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yep, so all 12 from the first game. Again, they might make promos to cover some of the promo characters or other characters in the game later. But the Velocigo says, the speed value of aggressive cards you play is multiplied by 3. Triceratodogo, speed value of normal cards is increased by 2. The Paradodo, during your turn you may resolve another card played by a player is not enraged instead of resolving your own. Pachycephalododo, after revealing cards advance 3 hexes if you are enraged. Stegododo, your movement cards are unaffected by reaction cards that would cancel their effect. The Leopoluradodo, other racers do not finish their movement in the same hex as yours. They move back 1 hex behind. The Brontododo, take 0 damage from projectile tokens that hit you. Spinododo, whenever you roll any amount of dice, you may reroll 1 die and choose the best result. The Paraflufadodo, at the end of each round, draw 2 cards and discard 1 of them. The Ankylododo, whenever a projectile launch doesn't hit a racer, you may launch it again with your other hand. The Dimitri Dodo. Whenever you recover not having cards in your hand, you may move back 2 hexes instead of 3. And finally, the Dodo. Whenever you deal any amount of damage, draw 1 card and deal 1 additional damage. So that's fun. Different abilities that trigger based on the different characters. That's cool, again, rather than just having more food cards, right? So hey, there's a different little take on it. Alright, let's hop through the different movement cards. We have Overpower, advance 2, or take 2 damage to advance 6 hexes. Prodigy, throw 1 egg as if it were a feather of 1 damage. On a hit, advance 8 hexes. Well, that's kind of cool, because it's kind of like the one from the first game that was like, it's an expert, I think. 2 long dino jumps. Take 1 damage, roll 1 die, and advance that amount. 2 of the Stampedes, roll 1 die and advance that amount. Roll another die, all other races advance that amount. That stayed the same. I don't know if the movement stayed the same, but that card stayed the same. Urgency, roll 2 dice and advance that amount. Boring, this card does nothing but just 5 movement. We have 2 dino jumps, roll 1 die and advance that amount. 2 combos. He's riding on the other guy's shell. That's interesting. Choose another player card and play advance equal to its speed value. 2 Thunderbolts. All racers ahead of you move back 1 hex. 2 Incautious. Take 1 damage, draw 2 cards. We have 3 meteorites. Drop 1 meteor for 2 damage. Each racer hit, draw 1 card and advance 2 hexes. 2 feathers. Throw a feather once. Place your racer 1 hex behind the hit racer. 3 rolling logs. Roll a log of 1 damage. Each racer hit moves back 3 spaces. That is a funny picture. I love the artwork on these. 3 bananas. Throw 1 banana of 2 damage. All racers hit move back 2 spaces. 3 eggs. Flick 1 egg of 2 damage on a hit, draw 1 card. A quake. All players pass their hand to the player on their left. Feathers and grease. Take a random card from each racer behind you. Plucked. Choose a racer ahead of you, take 1 random card from its hand. Charity. All other racers give you 1 card of a choice from their hand. Tornado, take 2 dice, 2 damage, roll 1 die, all other racers take that amount of damage. Phantom, choose a racer ahead of you, look at the player's hand, it takes 2 cards of your choice. 2 Abundance, draw 3 cards, all the racers draw 1 card. And finally, Nostalgia. Take any card of your choice from the discard pile. Oh, like they're playing on season. Oh, he's using the shell as the fulcrum. That's pretty cool. Alright, for the aggressive cards, we have Dodo Insight. Advance 4 hexes and draw 4 cards. Ooh, that's pretty cool. We have 2 copies of those. We have 2 of the Displacer. He's hiding in there with this is Triceratops. Take 2 damage, exchange places with the next racer. You choose ahead of you, choose 1 in case of a tie. Fiery Urgency. Roll 2 die and advance that amount. Fireball. Roll 2 die, advance that amount. Take 2 random cards from all races you pass. 2 of the early dino, an additional normal or dash card from your hand. 2 of the huge meteorite. Drop 1 meteor for 4 damage. Each racer hit, draw 2 cards and advance 2 hexes. 2 copies of Fiery Rolling Log. Roll 1 log for damage. All racers hit, move back 4 hexes. 2 glowing feathers. I think they're just on fire. Take 2 damage, throw the feather up to 2 times. Place 2 hexes and have the last racer hit. 2 of the blazing eggs. Flick 1 egg of 3 damage on a hit, draw 3 cards. 2 burning bananas. Throw 1 banana, 3 damage. All racers hit, move back 3 spaces. And then the last aggressive cards are 2 of the downside. Roll 1 die and draw that many cards. Roll another die, all the racers move back that amount. Then we got our reaction cards for green. Great blocking. We have 2 copies which say cancel the effect of any movement card before it is resolved. Its owner takes 1 damage. 2 copies of nice blocking. Cancel the effect of a normal, aggressive, or reaction before it is resolved. 2 copies of fine blocking. Sorry, 3 copies of fine blocking. Cancel the effect of normal reaction before it's resolved. So one will block everything. 1 blocks everything but dash, and 1 blocks just normal and reaction. Doesn't block aggressive. We have 2 fast legs. Advance 2 hexes. Super fast leg. Advance 3 hexes. 2 copies of another chance. Take 2 damage, roll 1 die, and advance that amount. I have to look at this. Is this... Nope. I thought maybe that's the guys that fell in the hole for Earthquake. And I was like, oh, maybe that's... that's just funny. And our last reaction is Lava Geysers. Roll 1 die. All races, including you, move back that amount. Then we have Dash cards, which are brand new. We have 2 copies of Serious Dash. Throw 1 Dodo of 4 damage. On a hit, you get a random Dodo Idol card. 2 copies of Kamihami Dash. You just shot him out of the shell. Throw 1 Dodo for 2 damage. All racers hit, move back 2 hexes. On a hit, you get 1 random Dodo card. 2 Jujitsu Dash, sorry. Throw 1 Dodo of 1 damage. All racers hit, move back 3 spaces. On a hit, you get a random Dodo Idol card. 2 copies of the Hockey Dash. Throw 1 Dodo. The first racer hit draws 2 cards. It gets 1 random Dodo card. The Comet Dash. Throw 1 Dodo. First racer hit advances 2 hexes and gets 1 random Dodo card. And then finally 2 copies of Tail Whip Dash. Throw 1 Dodo, first racer hits, gets 2 random Dodo cards. Just as like the little crux of Dodo dashing, because you are throwing Dodos with dash cards to get extra effects. And then we also have the yellow die, which is the same as the blue and red from the first one, just yellow. Again, this is because if you buy this by itself, you're going to need a die to play anyhow. So that just may give you the 3rd color die. So hey, maybe if we get a 4th version of the game, we'll get a green die. So then we have one that matches with reactions. Because we do have reaction cards, they tell us to roll die. That'd be kind of fun as well. And everything is going down. Alright, so the only last thing to look at in here is... Move these out of the way. This is inside of the box again. We looked at the last time. Here we have a big broken egg. And there's a tiny little dodo. So something giant was in there. We don't know what. A giant rainbow creature. So I'm only showing this off because the first game box showed like hints at being like the Dodo Rago Temple. This is showing a giant egg, so this might be a hint for the next game. Alright, that is what we have for Dodos Riding Dinos, Dodo Dash. So yeah, fun, lots of new concepts, lots of more dinos to play as. I really strongly feel it should be played as an expansion. Just get used to the other stuff. I love that you can mix and match everything. There's a little workaround for some of it. But it's not terrible. So yeah, if you haven't checked out the first video, go back, check that out. Otherwise, keep an eye out. I will be doing videos for some of the promo figures and stuff as well. Then later on, as I start getting them, I'll do some for the other Creature Kingdom games like War for Chicken Island, Kiwi Showdown. I can't always remember the name of that one. And then eventually the Panda Party game. So, they actually probably have the names on here. Party Panda Pirates, which we'll definitely be doing. We have like one of the little miniatures there. There is a guy riding a shark. Because some of these guys will cross over. War for Chicken Island. Because there's crossovers between some of these games. And then, TV Chowdown. That's what it was named. So those are the other 3 games that we will eventually be doing unboxing for as well. So hope you guys enjoyed this. See you guys later. Bye.